Welcome to the jungle. Welcome to the jungle. Welcome to the jungle. Welcome to the jungle.
Hey, welcome, Coach. Welcome to Sports Fluent, the Coach and AK. Coach, this week, I hate that we start our shows like this, but it is important to remember the people that we've lost and the things that they've done and how they've changed, the sport that we love. And this week, we're sending our condolences to the Gibb family. I'm just going to pass it to you. And, I know you mentioned he revolutionized the zone. So I want to hear about him, but also what he did for football.
Yeah, he revolutionized the zone running game. Obviously, when you go back and think about the great Denver Broncos teams with Terrell Davis, he was the architect behind all of that. A tremendous offensive mind, understood the skill that it took to run the zone game, the type of players you needed. He didn't want a lot of big guys. He wanted athletic, quick guys because they really got into the defender's legs. And he made defensive players make a business decision that day, because if you stayed up, you were going to get cut by the offensive linemen, and they were physical and fast, and they played that way. And the outside zone, the inside zone, the wide stretch zone, no one knew it better than Alex Gibbs. And I remember being a young coach and sitting and listening to him talk about it, and he just understood it inside and out. It became his passion. There's a lot of young coaches that follow behind him as offensive line coaches who wanted that title as well, but nobody could do it better than Alex Gibbs. He served as a consultant for many teams, many organizations who were trying to learn the zone game. And he helped a lot of coaches get to where they are today. So he'll be missed. He was a tremendous man. Really was.
And as I started, right, our condolences, our thoughts and prayers go out to the Gibb family. And, I told you earlier, it's not my favorite thing to do to start the show, but I always think it is important that we do recognize, those that came before us and those that, affected our lives and changed the way we do things. So unfortunately, it's another different kind of sad story. And I was surprised, to be honest, that I got a lot of people sending me, the Stephen A. Smith comment about, Tani, and that's not, I know he's apologized and he's come out and he's written a letter. So here's the two things that I got the most of. Now, let me, be clear when I say these aren't my thoughts or opinions, but I'm going to share them and get your thoughts on it. So one was, do you believe his apology to be sincere, or was it, hey, I said something that I believed, and you know what, I caught some slack for it, so I need to backpedal? Because I don't know how well you know Stephen A. Smith. I know you had you guys interviewed and you talked on the show, but I don't know how well you actually know him.
I know him. I think he said how he felt and realized that what he said was not taken well. And so I think he backpedaled. And I'm being very honest. I just think that's where it went all of a sudden. He is very, very outspoken on certain things. He has his own beliefs. I think a higher, group said, hey, look, we need to revisit this and you need to go correct this. And that's what he did. And that happens every day. We do know that. He didn't lose his job for it. He's not going to be suspended for it because it was one man's opinion. But it was a strong opinion, that all could hear and talk about. And it obviously is making national news. So, again, sometimes we do things and we don't think there's going to be repercussions for it. And there are, and maybe we say things a little off key, a little off kilter than maybe we were thinking. And then all of a sudden we realize, oops, we made a mistake here. So he owned it. And he's got to walk it back, and he has.
I try to look at things, as you know, from both sides. And so originally, right, when I said, okay, why would he say this? So I start to go through kind of in my head. So I'm like, okay, what he's saying, or what I hope he was saying, or think he was saying, I shouldn't say hope, think he was saying was, hey, people want stars, celebrities, role models who look like them, talk like them, they can understand. Like, I think that's what he was. I hope that maybe that's what he was trying to say. I'm hoping he wasn't knocking everyone who doesn't speak English. And it came out in a way, and I feel like I'm saying it now and it's coming out wrong. So I can understand how it could be mistaken as he's saying, hey, baseball needs, listen, for those that love baseball, baseball's still great. For those that are casual fans or aren't fans of baseball, it's having a difficult time, for a number of reasons. Whether it's, the way they're handling this whole pitching substance, the way they handled the Houston Astros, the length of the games, that they're, the unwritten rules. There's so many things about baseball that if you're not a baseball fan, you can easily point a finger. So yeah, you probably want a star to come out and be, Captain America and, bring the national pastime back. And so I think maybe that's what he was trying to say. So that, now on the flip side, obviously what he did say was wrong, and he needed to apologize for that, because it was wrong, regardless of what was meant, right? So that's the other side when I think about it.
Right.
The other thing that I got a lot of, and I think it's because of what we talk about every week on this show. So I'm going to put it out there. And again, I'm saying this again because I want to be clear. This is not my opinion. I am passing along information. If he was a white sportscaster, he would have been fired. True or false?
True.
True.
I mean, I think people would have really called for that person's head. And I totally agree.
And do you agree with that? Do you agree that because he's not, or because he's black, he gets more leeway?
I don't think it's just because he's black. I think it's because of his status,
okay,
and who he is. And he's been a very opinionated person. And I hate to say it, people make mistakes. And he made a big one. And people are going to look the other way because he is really good at his job. And so, but I agree with you. I think that's my thing about things being done the right way, being done even. So we're not even having to have that discussion about if it's right or wrong, and so there's going to be a group of people that are mad. There's going to be a group of people that say that, hey, look, this is, made a mistake. There's going to be a group of people that say, well, what is this? What are we doing here? So, that's what it's going to be.
Now, other than his status, okay, so obviously he's the guy, right? He's getting paid tons of money, and listen, the only reason you're getting paid that is because people are tuning in to watch you every day. So, yes. Right, so listen, I've always said to this, people say, oh my God, he's not worth that. Or they said that athlete isn't worth that. And I said, listen, everyone's worth what someone is willing to pay them. And I will never hold a grudge against someone for getting theirs, I guess.
Right.
So, but do you think he does get away with it a little bit because he is known for being outspoken, for kind of pushing the limits of what you cannot say? Like, if that's your what you're known as, like, I feel like, if I go way back, like Howard Stern is just known for being this shock kind of guy, right? So he gets away with it, where someone who's very, straight edge and they say something, it's like, oh, because you've never heard that from them before. Do you think that plays a role too?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You think of the Howard Cosell days, you think of some of the great ones, they were able to get away with just a little more than most because they were seen that way. Stephen A is, like I said, I don't question the job he does. He does a tremendous job. He plays football. But at the same time, they're going to make some mistakes. They're human. And I get that. But when you make them, you got to own it. Yeah. And there's some people that won't own it. And he did. And he does. And so I believe in second chances. I believe in letting things go. I believe that people do sometimes speak or say things they shouldn't. And you have to grow from it, and hopefully he's grown from this. You're never too old to quit growing. And so hopefully he's going to grow from this and not put himself in that situation anymore.
We've talked about this when other people have made mistakes, and I will commend him on this. Quick with the apology. Mm-hmm. And I made a mistake. It was all, everything he said was, I did this wrong. I need to fix it. I own it. And that's what I like. That I'm big on, you make a mistake, own that mistake, versus, I was thinking this, and he didn't try to explain it away like I kind of did a little bit for him. He just said, hey, I screwed up, and here it is, right? So I appreciate that. I like that.
Yeah, you just got to take it when it happens like that. He didn't wait a day. He let somebody else do it for him.
Yeah, right away.
He stepped to the plate and knew he had to to walk this back as fast as he could, and he did. And I think he was sincere, but I think there was more other pressure that, I'm not going to say convince, but had him understand these are the repercussions of these things. And so we have to make this right. And that's what he tried to do.
Yeah, because it wasn't just we saw the statement, the prepared statement. I think in the Twitter, I saw the Twitter post where it had the written statement and then him, right, video on, and then on the next show that he was on, same thing, took the first part and kind of gave it. So again, we give him credit for owning up to it. On the flip side of owning up to things, there's a team that's having some exhibition games, getting ready for the Olympics, and I don't feel they're owning up to their faults. Team USA basketball, are you worried that they've lost to Nigeria and Australia in back-to-back games?
Absolutely, I am.
Okay.
Are you kidding me? I mean, we're talking about USA. We're talking about a group that used to dominate this space. There wasn't even a question if we were going to win the game. It was going to be how much we're going to win the game by. Now we're just trying to find a win, with tremendous players. So what's wrong here? I know that all the best players aren't there, but still there's enough talent for this team to be competitive and win and those things. Something's not right. And we have to own this. And it could be that these countries are better prepared to play against our teams. They have as much talent as we have. They are being coached better. They have expectations that exceed where we are in our country. So it's an issue. I'm concerned, and they're going to lose some more. I truly believe that. And so that's where we are today.
Do you think, so I've heard a couple of different things. One, everyone tries to use continuity. They've only played together for 10 days. And I'm kind of like, well, they've also, if you look at the roster, there's some guys who've played together. And
absolutely.
And if you look at the other teams, not all their players aren't playing together. They've got I guess the difference is the world's starting to catch up because they all have some NBA talent on their rosters.
There you go. You just said it. And that's what it is. They have more talent and they're playing in the NBA and they're very good players in the NBA. This isn't new. And we need to wake up. And some of the better players in the National Football League are from different countries, and they're showcasing their talent in our country. And for us to think that, okay, we're just going to go over there and kick their butts, that doesn't work anymore. So we better get ready.
Do you think there's some complacency? Because we were also talking about the history of the team, and we're like, listen, in 92, right, the U.S. was tired of losing. And they said, hey, we're going up against players from other countries who play professionally. And we've, held the standard of amateur athletes, and we didn't let our NBA professional players play. So they made, probably the greatest team ever assembled, right? The dream team, and they took care of business. Then there was this lull, and I believe it was 06, which was the FIBA something where that team lost. And everyone went, and then they created, it was a lot of the same players, but came back, and they were, I believe, in 08, but they also played a tournament in 07, the Redeem team. And the Redeem team dominated again. But then, when you keep winning, it seems like, the players start to ease off the gas pedal a little bit. Oh, we've dominated for, 4, 8, 12 years, whatever it is. Do you think there's some of that too? Is there's not that urgency to win because they just thought, hey, we're the best, we're going to come together and we're just going to beat everybody. And now they're realizing, oops, we can't just flick a switch and be the best again.
Absolutely, Anthony. I think it's a combination of all these things, right? I think there is some complacency a little bit amongst the USA players because they're some of the best in the world. But as I was saying earlier, some of these other guys who are coming in NBA from other countries, they are playing at a high level, and we need to see that, acknowledge that, and understand they're probably even better prepared than some of our guys are because they're the desire to beat the US in basketball is greater now than ever before. And it's really interesting because now people will start seeing other countries as being even with us or above us because we normally dominate this thing. So there's going to be a cry as there is now about what's going on, why don't we have all of our best players out there playing? I don't know that would change everything because the mindset is so different. when it comes to our best players. Now, could we put a dream team together? Absolutely, we could. But at the same time, like I said, I still think there's enough talent to get it done. Something's not clicking. Something's not working right now.
Well, I also think it's an interesting time for NBA players because I think about 22% of the league is international. And some of the best players, like when you look at Giannis, Joker, Embiid, like there's a lot of players who aren't, from the US. And when you look at the best, you look at LeBron, well, LeBron's 36. He's releasing a movie. He's got he's thinking about the next phase. And then the other guy, I think, I think he's about to hit $1 billion. I just read he's about his next paycheck will put him at $1 billion. So, hey, listen, he's doing all the right things. And he's got his Olympic golds. So I think he's okay. And then I think some of the other guys are young and they haven't done it. And it's different. You have to adjust your game to the Olympics, which is, you got to get used to that. So that's enough about the NBA. I want to dive into some NFL stuff because there's two players. One that I think we're going to talk about that we've talked about a lot. One who's not a huge superstar, but interesting because he's requested a trade. And then I'm going to do a little throwback with you and ask you a question. So let's start with the big name. Let's start with Aaron Rodgers. He has doubled down on I'm not playing for the Packers again. My summer is about mental health and getting right and getting out of Green Bay. Has your opinion changed when we talked about this about maybe a month ago and you said, listen, he's playing for the Packers or he's not playing at all? Has he swayed you at all? Because he's trying to sway the Packers.
No, he's not swaying me at all. I know he took an unbelievable picture today with Tom Brady today, who they're good friends. They both from the Bay Area. I'm sure they had conversations about, Tom, how did you manage to make this decision, move on and feel good about it and go win a Super Bowl? There's no question that Aaron could do that, but I just don't see the Packers relenting because they don't have to. And they're not a very good team without Aaron Rodgers. They won't be. It'd be like a rebuild there. They might as well have a fire sales there. They get rid of Aaron Rodgers. So
yeah, because if Aaron goes, they probably, Adams probably wants to leave right away, right?
Absolutely. Adams, I know the running back said that he's comfortable being. Look,
no, but Jones probably,
one thing I know about NFL players, they want to win, and their value goes up in winning. Their value don't go up in losing. So they can say what they want. There'll be a mass exodus there because they know that he is one of the keys to winning. So I don't see them letting him out of there. I know he is pushing the envelope, but players can do that up until the last second. When it's time to go, you got to go. We're going to find out here pretty soon.
The other name, and listen, I'm biased. I want him to move on, but if I'm Green Bay, I'm doing everything in my power to keep, one of the greatest, talent-wise, greatest quarterbacks, not just of all time talent-wise. He's there. He's in that conversation. So yeah, you do what you can. The other name is an interesting one because you rarely hear people wanting to get out of New England, and especially guys who haven't really done anything. So N'Keal Harry is like, hey, I want out of New England. You had a wide receiver. Now I know you weren't really directly dealing with him. It was the year that Todd Haley was the OC, and it sounds like he wasn't big on. Hopefully I remember his name. Corey Coleman. And I saw a clip of Hard Knock and him coming into your office and very emotional. And if you guys don't want to play me, then just trade me. And I get it. Like, you want to win, you want to play. These are, hey, I love, you want to see that passion. So when you see a guy like N'Keal Harry say, hey, I want out, what do you see from the outside looking in? And how do you deal with that, from the inside when now they've made it public?
That just tells me that his group, his camp, has told him you need to force your way out, because players normally don't talk like that unless they're ready to go. Either he's assessed the environment and say, I don't have a chance here. They're not going to give me an opportunity to be what I can be, or however he sees himself. Somewhere there's a disconnect, and he knows he needs to go somewhere else and have an opportunity, because that normally doesn't happen there. You mentioned that. And it doesn't happen with a lot of players. Hey, a lot of players sometimes don't play as well or didn't get as many balls as they wanted. It never makes it to the national media.
Right.
You know,
Yeah. When you think of how many players are in the league and how many trade requests we
yeah,
hear, it's the number's
absolutely.
small. So that's why it's that's why it's
Yeah,
on my radar.
right. It doesn't make national news. This makes national news. And this guy was a high draft pick. Um, they thought was going to turn into something else, and it didn't. So either the Patriots were wrong in their assessment of the talent, or the player's not doing his part. Somewhere in the middle, that's where this is. And then when this gets like this, you just need to move on. I mean, what can I get for this particular player, and moving forward?
So you think flip side of Rodgers, because obviously their talent level is different. Patriots hit it.
Absolutely.
They'll probably grant his request and see whatever they can get for him and make that move.
Oh yeah, because this guy has never been the reason why they won.
Right.
You know, he doesn't. I mean, matter of fact, he didn't play a lot. You know, he hasn't played a lot. So
That's why I'm surprised that
yes.
that it's him.
And I think he thinks so. He's painting a picture that they're stopping him from playing. You know, and maybe what they're saying is he's not good enough to play.
Yeah. So let's go back to the Corey I don't know why I keep forgetting his last name. Corey Coleman. I feel so terrible. Let's go back to Corey Coleman. So when he comes into your office and says, "Hey, I want to trade," one, how much are you aware? Because I know that your focus is somewhere else. So how much are you aware of his situation, and kind of what do you just say? Hey, that's Todd things. Go go talk to him, or do you have the conversation? What's your role in that?
Well, oh no, as a head coach, I have a huge role. I mean, I'm very aware, but I thought there was a personal beef from him to Todd and from Todd to him. So first, you want to give two men the opportunity to work it out before you have to step in. I think that's how you handle those things. You let adults handle things an adult way. Let's have a conversation about why you think that I'm not giving you an opportunity, and you tell me what it is that you think you do well to give you an opportunity. And so I think when you can hash those things out, I don't think you ever in the National Football League win anyway by browbeating a player. I don't think you win as a player trying to come at a coach. It just doesn't work that way. I think you have to work together. Now, do we try to motivate guys differently, get guys to realize their talent a different way? Absolutely, we do. But at the same time, and you have to wear all those hats. But the end result still has to be the end result. Either the guy is good enough to play or he's not good enough to play. One or the other.
I got to tell you, I know Corey Coleman. I'm gonna say it 3 times because I keep wanting to call him Corey Campbell for some reason, and I don't know why. All right, so from wide receivers, a couple weeks ago, we talked about I think it was top 5 quarterbacks of all time. So I'm gonna narrow the list and not give you 5. So I want to go to running backs because I know who your number 1 is. I know who my number 2 is, and they happen to be the same person. So I want to discuss why you have 1 and I have 2. But Mount Rushmore, so you only get 4. So Mount Rushmore of running backs looks like what?
The greatest running back I've ever seen play the game is Jim Brown. There's not the comparison to him is just it's different. He's way different, and he played the game different. His mindset was different. What people don't understand about Jim Brown, he was as intelligent of a football player as there was on the field. He understood everything, and that's what made him a great player. He walked away under his terms. A lot of people don't do that. He stopped when he wanted to and became an actor, and pursued that particular venue and did great at that as well. Number 2, obviously, is Walter Payton. I mean, you can't talk about running backs unless you talk about Walter Payton. A lot of people would say there's some others, maybe a little bit better, but what he brought to the game, where he came from, what he did, to me is second to none. Obviously, Barry Sanders, he's one of the greatest in my mind ever played. You couldn't put a hand on him. Here was a guy that basically would say, leave the safety unblocked, and they couldn't tackle him. They just could not get him down, and he was special that way. The next guy for me was Earl Campbell because he was just different. He was just a rolling ball, butcher knives is what he was, and he played the game the way it was supposed to be played. And I just love how he conducted his business. The next guys for me, there's so many, and I'm gonna stop at this. But when I think of LaDainian Tomlinson, because he was a lot like Barry, because I know for a fact that there were plays in the playbook that nobody blocked certain people, nobody. Okay, and this guy was just phenomenal. I'm not, again, Eddie George, who's my boss, was a tremendous player, but I can't throw Eddie in there yet. I'm just being honest. I mean, I love him. And he was tremendous and one of the best to do it. But we're talking about but you said Mount Rushmore, and there's so many guys that flood my mind that were runners, that were great runners, the Eric Dickersons of the world, that there's just so many Tony Dorsetts of the world. There's so many that you can throw into this basket and say, these guys were great. So it's hard for me to really, really narrow the list, because it could go on and on, because I think there's 10 guys that you really have to sit down and really look at what they did, how they did it, who they did it with.
Yeah.
And in order to have those kind of conversations, because I'd be leaving some people out, and I do believe Eddie's in that top 10.
Yeah.
But I think the top 5 are those different guys.
You're gonna need another mountain to put them all up there. But
yeah.
Okay. So here's my thing. One, I think part of it is I never got to see Jim Brown play.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm only going off tape. So that, and let's be honest, I'm also biased. So I have Walter Payton number 1. Right. But I admit that I'm biased. One, because I saw him play, right? He brought my team a Super Bowl. He's the reason. I tell everyone this story. It was a game in 1982, Mike Ditka's rookie year coaching, and the Bears beat the Lions. I forget the score, but field goal in overtime. That was the first football game I ever saw. And Walter Payton, I saw him run, and I went, I saw Mike Ditka chomping gum up and down the sideline, which is a sight to see. But I saw Walter Payton run and go, and just went, wow, what is this? Like, I didn't really know football. Like, I knew what football was. I didn't know football till I saw Walter run. And that made me fall in love with the Bears. It made me fall in love with football, and obviously with Walter. So for me, it's an easy one, but I admit, I know that there's emotion behind that. The reason other than those reasons, the reason I have Brown 2, other than not seeing him play, and I love Walter Payton, is that he did cut his career off short, right? I think he was 30 when he retired. And so there was that, that longevity that he missed out on by his own, choosing. Because if you don't count longevity, right, you can put Gale Sayers in that conversation, right? He was a special runner, but his was due to injuries, but he didn't get to play the amount of years that he got to play. So I got Peyton 1, Brown 2. So our top 3 are the same. And then Barry Sanders, which I hated because we saw him 2 times a year, every year. And you're right. It's like, I don't think you could, if he played flag football, I don't think you get the flag from him, let alone tackle him. He was just so shifty, and just the way whether it was his hips, his shoulders, everything was like, I want to say like a Lego guy that you put together, and just everything shifted and turned. He was just phenomenal to watch run. Even though I wanted them to lose, I'm like, you couldn't take your eyes off Barry. So we got Walter, Jim Brown, and then Barry Sanders 3. So our, other than 1, 2, our top 3 are the same. This one might be, there's recency bias. This is maybe geographical bias, and I hope that I'm able to take away someone's personal life and their football play. Because if you think of anything other than football, you're probably not putting him on any list. But I got O.J. Simpson at number 4. Mm-hmm. And again, strictly on football, man, he was special. He was like,
baby.
Yeah, like you mentioned some other guys, but he was special. Mm-hmm. And so, and then yes, and then it gets money, because then it's, it's the Earl Campbells, the Eddie George, the Damian Tomlinsons, the, Eric Dickerson, like all those same guys. There's so many, but if I had to pick 4, those are my 4. And I think no one argues 1, 2, 3. I do get, some.
I don't argue 4. I think Jim Brown, I think O.J. Simpson could be in the top 3. You're right. I didn't bring his name up just because I haven't thought of him that way lately. But
Right.
he was one of the greatest running backs ever to play. But I think and you said it, I didn't know as much about Jim Brown until I got to Cleveland.
Right.
Really appreciate who Jim Brown was as a football player. He was not just some big man who ran fast. He was powerful. He was strong. He was a real man, and he played the game that way. And he did all the things everybody else did at his size. And that, to me, said it all, because he was just, God built a running back, and it was Jim Brown. And when I hear Lewis and those guys talk about him, some of the greats of watch tape, those are the people they fear, because he was just a different animal.
He, in preparing for this, I went and started to watch some tape. And, this is a cliche term, but I'm going to use it anyways, because, and it's been said a lot. He really did look like a man playing with boys, right? Even though they were all, like, if you look at their size, and he just seemed so bigger, stronger, faster, smarter than all of them.
My greatest Jim Brown story is meeting him for the first time and shaking his hand. I'm talking about, he probably has 12 hands. I mean, this guy's hand just engulfed almost my whole arm. I mean, this guy's huge. I mean, he is a big man. And I don't think people really appreciate Jim Brown and how big he was. No, then you compare Barry Sanders, how much smaller Barry Sanders was.
Right.
So those guys were gifted. God gave them something. I mean, go back to Walter Payton. They gave them something. They were just different. They played it different, and you just knew they did. They were special.
Yeah. Well, Walter was not only the best running back on the Bears, he was probably one of their best quarterbacks too. So
yes,
again, I bump him up. That halfback option was beautiful. Which another thing, right? LaDainian Tomlinson. So it was actually funny, because when you compared him to Barry Sanders, I immediately thought, wow, he kind of moves like Barry, but he also had that ability to throw it in, like Walter too. He's kind of a nice mix between the two.
Oh, he was talented. I remember being at the combine watching him change directions. And he was just, that looked like Barry Sanders to me, because he had that. I mean, he could start one way and go back the other way as fast as anybody I've ever seen. And then, just like I said, being with Cam Cameron, who had him in San Diego and understood, I'm watching so much tape of this guy run. And I would say, Cam, wait a minute, we got to account for the safety. He goes, no, you don't. I said, what do you mean? He said, because that belonged to LaDainian. I go, what do you mean? He goes, and you look at on the sheet, the install sheet, LaDainian Tomlinson has the safety. He would tell him, I got him. Don't y'all worry about him. He tell Lorenzo Neal, you just block this guy. Give me him. I have never had a back tell me that. Just give me him. They said that's what he would say in the meetings. I got him. Don't worry about it. And when we're talking about some of the greatest safeties ever to play the game that he was going against.
When he played,
Yeah, and he didn't worry about them because they couldn't get him down. And that's, to me, that says a lot to me.
So if we're looking, and it doesn't have to be the best.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, maybe I'll give you two questions, because you brought up a second one. So my question I was going to ask you was, right now playing, who is the most fun to watch? And then the second part of that question is be, who's the running back you think today is saying, I got the safety, don't worry about it?
I would think the running back says, I got the safety, don't worry about it, is a kid that's at Tennessee. I don't think he worries about safety, or sometime linebackers, because he goes straight arm, keep on going. That's that's how he plays. At one time, I would say it was Ezekiel Elliott, but something, again, when you don't have all of your aces playing with you, it becomes a different game. I don't care what anybody says. So that's a different game for him. Right now, I'm sure there's somebody else you'll mention that comes to mind. One of the best running backs in the league right now, and I'm not, safeties, linebackers, D linemen have a hard time tackling, is Nick Chubb.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he's on the verge of stardom. I really do. I think that team will go as he goes. I think everybody looks at don't get me wrong. I think OBJ is a great player. I think Jarvis Landry is a tremendous player. But they go as Nick Chubb goes. And if he's going, then they're going to go somewhere. And because he is the engine that turns there. And so he's just special. He's different. He really is.
Yeah, so it's interesting. As we were talking about the question about leave the safety, my first thought was Derrick Henry. So it was the same one, because I'm like, he's going to run over the linebacker and then outrun a safety, and it's just a guy that size to be that powerful and that quick. That's so he's also one of my most fun to watch. But the other one that I enjoy watching. So again, I'm not saying he's the best. He's obviously very good, but Alvin Kamara. I could just watch Alvin Kamara run the ball, catch it out of the backfield, and I could just watch tape of that all day, because the things he does that are so.
He does. You just named it. Different, because for the first time this past year, they handed him the ball more, because I think they did their quarterback situation. If you make him the every down back that comes out every now and then, third down, whatever, then I would jump into that conversation. But right now, he's still seen as a specialist. You know, he's paid as a starting running back, but I think, and because he does so many great things, don't get me wrong, and I'm not slighting him, not one bit, but he doesn't carry the ball like Derrick Henry does.
Oh, yeah.
Or like Ezekiel Elliott. Those guys, he brings something different to the game. The grunt part of the game for me for a running back is a guy who can carry it the way Eddie George used to back in the day. You know, the way Eric Dickerson did back in the day, and Jim Brown and Walter Payton. Those guys were going to get the ball 25 to 28 times a game, and they were going to come at you, and they were going to wear you down. And at the end, it was going to be a different game. I don't know that Alvin Kamara could do that week in and week out and stay healthy.
Oh yeah, and that's why I did say, I'm not saying he's the best. I'm saying I just like, he's the most fun to watch. He's entertaining.
Oh, no doubt.
And he's, hey, listen, and he always helps my fantasy team, so I'm a big fan. So this was another one that just actually came up, I think yesterday, and simple. You can just give me an answer if you can off the top of your head. So Bo Jackson, for some reason, has been kind of in the news a lot. And the big thing, is Bo Jackson the greatest? I think he said, "Oh, if I was in the NFL, I'd rush for like 350 yards a game or something." I think that might have sparked some people looking back. Now I know who my two are. I don't know if they're very close. So here's been the debate that's been happening. I'd love your take. Bo Jackson, Deion, or other. You could say other. Bo Jackson or Deion Sanders, greatest athlete. Forget their careers. Athlete to play in the NFL.
Well, that's hard.
That's what I said.
That's really hard, because, and not be like you said, not because of the positions they played, because they both were just freaks, in my opinion. I mean, Deion was different than any athlete. Bo, before he got injured, was different than any other athlete. So, I mean, it's hard for me to separate the two. Obviously, Deion had a much better career.
Yeah,
because he
sure.
He was able to play. But I think if Bo was able to play and stay healthy, it would be no conversation.
Yeah, I said athletically, keeping as much, as hard as it is, keep all their stats and all that stuff out of my brain. I say Bo by a hair, because he was just bigger and stronger and either as fast or almost as fast. Hell, some people have said faster, but I still think Deion's faster, but I mean almost as fast. So just imagine Deion being big, strong, just bigger and stronger. So that's why I was like, I give him the nudge. Any of those guys that can do things at that size, right? I bring back, Jim Brown, heck, LeBron, like to do what you do when you're that big, LeBron, 6'9", 250, doing what he did. Those guys are like, I gave LeBron a hard time, right? Because when he says, I wasn't even supposed to be here. And I'm like, you're 6'9", 250 pounds, and you could jump through the gym. Like there was nowhere else where else were you supposed to be? Where else were you supposed to be?
I mean, he probably was talking about his childhood.
Yeah, no, I know. I do. Yeah, I know that.
You get it, but he was destined to be what he is today. That's why I mean, these guys who are great players, it's in their DNA. I think they were meant to be. Now, there's a lot of people on the streets that were meant to be something and didn't make it either. They got sidetracked.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just went down the wrong alley. And I'm sure there's a ton of those out there. So the ones that do make it, I am very partial to them because I know what it takes. I know the things they had to pull themselves away from to become what they became today. So I am LeBron James, as you said. I mean, the guy is just phenomenal. He's phenomenal. He's one of the greatest to ever play the game.
From football to football, or soccer as we call it, I have a huge problem that unfortunately not enough people share with me. But the EuroCup, I'm in an area where there's a lot of Italian people, and so Italy just won the EuroCup, so there's a bunch of Italian flags and people being very happy that they won. It drives me nuts that a EuroCup, a World Cup, is decided on penalty kicks, right? I equate it to, and people told me I'm wrong, I equate it to, a basketball game, game 7 of the NBA Finals. You went through 3 overtimes, couldn't decide a winner. Oh, let's have a free throw shooting contest. We're in the Super Bowl. Let's have a field goal kicking competition to see who wins. And I know it's not the exact same thing. I do get that. But I feel like if you're going to be the winner of a game, you need to play that game, not a piece of that game. So I'm curious, as would you ever, if the Super Bowl was decided by field goal kicks, each kicker gets 3 kicks from 40, 50, and 60 yards, would you be okay with that?
No, I wouldn't be. It's because it's a part of the game, but it's not all of it.
Right.
I think we all agree with that. I agree with where you're going with this. I think for that to decide who wins and who loses, there need to be more to it. There's too much work put into this to all of a sudden have a kick decide. And again, that being said, those are the rules.
Look, it's the rules. It's been like that forever, and that's why that tradition, and people don't want to buck it because that's just the way it is. But just because it's normal doesn't make it right.
Don't make it right.
Smart guy told me that. So that I don't know why it bothers me so much, because I'm not a big soccer fan or football fan, whatever. But it just every time I see something end in penalty kicks, I cringe. Because I'm not the traditionalist, right? I'm not the been following for really intently. My dad, he'll fight me on it, right?
I share that with you because I get to that point. It reminds me of the college overtime games. You put the ball down in a certain spot, you get so many tries. Just play it. Go play another quarter. Go play the game. And people always makes it exciting. Well, players get hurt. All this. Look, play the game. And see who wins. And let's see if we can not come away with a tie. It's football. It's soccer. Let's go play. Let's not worry about the kicks. Let's see if they can get their team in position to win the game as a team, And I know kicking is a big part of the game. And I know being in the scoring zone is a big part of football. But how do you get there? I think really matters more than anything.
Yeah, like my thing with soccer in particular what do you want it to be? Like 3 days like cricket? And I said no. Because what's going to happen? Let's be honest. It's a grueling game to play. Someone's going to get tired. Someone's going to make a mistake. And you're going to score a goal, or one of the teams is going to just want it more, and they're going to be more aggressive. And because of that aggression, they're either going to score, or hey, they're going to make a mistake and the other team's going to score. I'm okay with that. That's you play to win the game.
Right.
So that was the what drove me a little batty. But there was something else that came out after that I think the world needs to recognize. And it's not a good thing, because there was a couple of black players on the English team that missed some of those penalty kicks.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, did the English, I don't even call them fans, because fans don't do that, right? Did some people from England, I guess, or I don't even know what to call them, sure make their feelings felt, and sure show the world that racism isn't a US problem. It isn't a Canada problem. It isn't a South African problem. It's a global problem. I'm assuming you saw that story. When you saw that story, did it click for you the same way that it clicked for me, that wow, this is a global issue that needs fixing?
Very disappointed. Very disappointed because there it was again, right there in our face.
Yeah.
You know, it's there, and for people to say, maybe not. No, it's real. It's out there for everybody to see. You can't deny this. You can't keep running from what the problem is in our world. You know, and so, but we always find a way to move it to something else or make it about something else later on. But it really disappointed me. It made me realize, like you said, that this thing is not even close to being over. The equality is not even close. When those kind of things can create that kind of animosity, tells you all you need to know.
Who, you know, and my immediate thought, and listen, I'll give a shout out to Donovan Bennett, who posted this. So I am stealing something from him, but he said, like, who do you think got you there? How do you think England got to that game? These same players that you were cheering for, right, 5 seconds earlier, and now this is what you're saying about them. It's so horrible, and
Yes.
yet, you know, it seemed like just people just. Do you know that one of the things that struck me? One of them, I think, the last time England won, or the last time they were in the final, because I don't think they've actually ever won a EuroCup, but they just showed a picture of this team, I think from 1966, and they were all white. And he said, you know, and they were like, oh, immigration has ruined England. And I thought, you know, I went and did some research, and that picture, yeah, there was 3 or 4 players that were immigrants. They just happened to be white immigrants. So your issue is not with immigration. Your issues with immigration, you know, with people who don't look like you, with people who have a different skin color than you, because that's really your issue. Because if you did one quick Google search, you'd know that some of those players weren't, you know, historically, from England.
Absolutely.
And those are the things. It's just like, what? How can you? And that's why, and maybe I did something wrong just now by not calling them fans of England and saying, I don't know what the heck they are. No, they're fans of England. And guess what? Some of them are racist. And I think you're right. I think we beat around the bush. We just kind of say, oh, it's, you know, they were angry, they lost, it was emotion. No, that's how you feel. Your true colors have come out.
Absolutely.
Now what? Right. And that's the big question that we can't answer is now what? Because again, you know, when things were happening, you know, when George Floyd, when that was happening in the US, I'm here in Canada, and people started looking, they're like, well, we're in Canada. It's not like that here. Yeah, it is. Now, is it as bad? Well, no, because we have 1/10 of the population. So it doesn't seem it is as bad. It's just we have 1/10 of the population. So, you know, just it's a numbers game. So you're not going to see it as much. But I mean, I don't believe South Africa is a very accepting place in the world. Clearly, England isn't all unicorns and rainbows. So no. it made me like, you know, it made me realize, like, we talk about coaches and, you know, how, you know, there's not enough minority coaches in football and in basketball and in baseball. By the way, I think there's only 2 in baseball. And we talk about that, but it's not just sports, and it's not just the US. It's everywhere. And it made me, you know, when we had that conversation, I said, do you think, you know, we'll see a change in our lifetime? And you said no. And I'm like, yes, we will. Man, it's hard to say yes, we will.
It's very hard. I just don't. And that's what I was getting at when I said it is everywhere, because it is. And I knew it wasn't just football. I did, like you, because you really taught me this, I did more research. You know, it's in basketball, it's in baseball, it's everywhere. And it's not just sports. It's in life. And there's outliers, and there's a couple here that slid through, and there's a couple other people that slid through. But at the end of the day, we don't have those opportunities. And that's what the real issue is. And so it's for it to still be everywhere tells you that there's a big problem.
We're gonna leave it on this last kind of question, which obviously deals here. Do you feel that I'm trying to think of the right way to word this. Do you feel that bringing up race, is it making it worse? Like, are people, let me add to that, because again, I'm reading through, you know me, I try not to, but I always get sucked into reading through comments that, you know, when I post something, I feel there's this sentiment that they're like, well, oh, every time this happens, you always bring up race and you always bring up the past and you always bring, and I'm like, well, yeah, you need to know the past to change your future. But do you feel like always bringing it in race is causing this, this kind of a bigger divide? I'd say butting heads, but really a bigger divide where it's like, hey, we keep talking about it and someone keeps fighting it. And there's these people that are, there's the people who believe one thing, the people who believe the other. And then there's these people who are stuck in the middle who are kind of like, oh my God, like I feel like this, like it's this tennis match and I'm getting knocked between, history and, hey, get over it, move on. And, oh, hey, we can't really just get over it and forget it. It's a huge issue because it hasn't changed. We put lipstick on the pig, but it's still a pig. And there's that middle ground. Like, how does that, again, I don't know that I was very eloquent with the way I asked that question, but
yes, you were very elegant. I need to say this, Anthony, I want to first thank you because you're not afraid to bring up race and the issues that go on. It's something we've talked about. You're not afraid to deal with the tough subjects. This is real. If you don't talk about it, think about how much further away we would be. And nobody really talks about it. Nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody really wants to dig into what the issues are because that's a hard conversation. And you're not going to come to a consensus of what's right and what's wrong. It just won't happen. So I don't think bringing it up is causing a bigger divide. I think because there's so much technology now, things that are seen at the blink of an eye when it happens, that's why you're having more of what's going on. I mean, there're just so many things that are happening in our world in real time that we now get to see, and it's showing itself for what it is. And the people who are saying, why do you want to keep bringing that up? They're the people that don't want to deal with it. They're the people that want to leave it like it's been and keep moving forward because life's okay, we're moving forward, but that doesn't make it right. I'll keep saying that. I mean, that's what's happened, and that's what's become the recourse to so many things. Well, that's been happening for a long time. Oh, it's not going to change because people don't want to change it. It's too hard to change. How do you change something that's been wrong for forever? And so that's what the problem is. I mean, we don't have people talking about how to change these things. I had such an interesting conversation with a person today about the NIL stuff that we talked about last week, about how you change, how do you make it better? Because they're just as concerned as I am. Well, until you go. So they said, oh, let's go down to the pre-high school days, deal with the ninth graders and educate them, and educate the high. So there's a plan. Nobody can give us a plan how to change this race thing. There is no plan. You got to have a plan on how to fix these things, and people don't want to deal with a plan because it's too hard. So I brought that up just to say that, hey, look, at the end of the day, you've asked me this question several times. I'll say it again. I don't see things changing. I don't think they will. I think people are a little bit more thoughtful, mindful of things they say and how they go about things because the microscope is more on this now than ever before. There'll still be some people that squirt through and come out the other side okay about something they said or something they've done. Just like we talked about with Stephen A. earlier, there'll be some people who get punished for it, because of their value and who they are, So none of that is right, in my opinion, none of it. Because if you're going to do it right, but don't do it at all, because we've seen examples of it being done wrong for years and it hadn't changed. So I just think that's where we are.
Yeah. Well, Coach, thank you. When do we get back to, I don't know, your camera's just cutting off your logo, but when do we get back to some TSU? Yeah, we got it.
Well, no, we get back very, very quickly here. Starting late next week, we're right back at it. Getting ready. Obviously, we got a big game, first game against Grambling. But first, we got to coach our team. Yeah. We've been around them, but we haven't been able to put our hands on them the way we need to as coaches to mold them, drive them, get them to understand what it takes to win. But that will start happening here very quickly. And we're excited about the opportunity. I know I am. I think all the coaches are recharging their batteries. The players are into the second phase of an off-season program, and they'll get a little break before we really get into this thing.
The game Grambling is it the first? Am I correct? Is the
First,
first week is first
yes,
week of
sir.
September?
Yes.
And
Mhm.
so when does everyone report and you can actually, full pads, full practice?
August 6th, they report. August 7th is our first practice. They can't put on full gear until 5 practices. And so
Okay.
we get to do a lot of things with them prior to being able to put on the pads. And then the first game is September 5th in Canton. So we're looking forward to it. We're going to play a good Grambling team. They have a lot of talented players returning. But we think we'll be up to the challenge.
Are you up to date on all the, how many practices you can, because it's different than the NFL, right? How many practices you can have, when you can have pads on, pads off. Are you guys all up to speed? And Coach George, right? First head coaching gig.
Yeah.
So
I'm gonna follow his lead. I try to submerge myself in what I need to do with the offensive unit and the offensive coaches. I let Coach George work all the rest of it. And my job is to find a way to score points, enough points to win every game we play. And that's all I'm trying to do.
all right, well, good luck. I will come down and see you guys and maybe give you a pep talk in Canton. Maybe I could be the motivational speaker. And I'm looking forward to this season too. So again, as always, thank you for your time, Coach.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Welcome to the jungle. Welcome to the jungle. Welcome.